"Daddy, why is the house always so quiet?" The question never made it out loud, but it lived in the silence that swallowed the mansion every morning. Michael Hale had everything men were taught to chase: a glass and steel empire, boardrooms that bent to his voice, a house so large it echoed when he walked through it alone at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, home too early, with a headache he couldn't buy away. The marble floors were spotless. The air was cold. And somewhere upstairs his daughter Lily existed more like a memory than a child, withdrawn, wordless, frozen, since the day her mother died. Michael told himself the silence meant order, control, success. But the truth was simpler, and far more brutal. The silence meant absence. He had filled Lily's world with the best doctors, the most expensive therapists' toys she never touched, and rooms she never laughed in. He paid for everything except the one thing she needed: presence. So he worked longer, traveled farther, let the house raise his child while he built an empire that couldn't hold her pain. Then one morning everything cracked. From the far end of the house, something impossible floated through the air. Laughter, not polite, not forced. A child's laughter, wild, bright, alive. Michael stopped breathing. It was coming from the greenhouse, the place he hadn't entered since his wife died. And there, bathed in sunlight and green life, was his daughter on the shoulders of Aisha, a black woman hired 3 weeks earlier as a housekeeper. Aisha wasn't cleaning. She was spinning slowly, making airplane noises, holding Lily like she mattered more than marble or money. And in that moment, Michael understood the most painful truth of his life. He wasn't a bad father because he lacked love. He was a bad father because he wasn't there to give it. Michael didn't step into the room right away. He stayed half hidden behind the glass door, afraid that if he breathed too loudly, the moment would shatter. Aisha stood barefoot on the warm stone floor of the greenhouse, sunlight catching in her dark curls. Yellow rubber gloves hung loosely from her wrists, like something forgotten. She wasn't performing. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was simply there, steady, playful, unguarded. Lily sat on her shoulders, head thrown back in pure delight, her laughter ringing against the glass ceiling like a sound. Resurrected from the dead, Michael's chest tightened. This was the laugh he had begged for in doctors' offices. The laugh he had tried to buy with private clinics in Zurich. The laugh that had never come home with him from boardrooms and five-star hotels. And now it was here. Alive. Effortless. Not because of him. Gratitude hit first sharp and overwhelming. His eyes burned as he watched his daughter live again. For the first time in 2 years, Lily wasn't shrinking into corners or staring through people. She was reaching, trusting, glowing. Then came the jealousy. Ugly, uninvited, honest. Why her? Why a woman he barely knew? Why someone he paid to clean floors and wipe counters, doing what he, her father, could not? The thought hollowed him out. Michael realized something then that no financial report had ever taught him. Lily hadn't needed fixing. She had needed someone who stayed, someone who didn't rush, someone who knelt instead of towered, someone whose love wasn't scheduled between flights. Aisha turned slowly, pretending to be an airplane, her voice warm and playful. Lily clapped her small hands, resting against Aisha's shoulders like she had always belonged there. Michael pressed his palm to the doorframe to keep himself standing. The scene was unbearably beautiful and unbearably indicting, because while he had been chasing success, Aisha had been offering something far rarer: presence without conditions. In that greenhouse, surrounded by living things that grew quietly when tended with patience, Michael understood a truth that broke him open. Love hadn't abandoned his daughter. It had simply arrived in a form he hadn't been humble enough to recognize. The spell broke with the sound that didn't belong. Metal clattered against stone, sharp, ugly final. Lily's laughter vanished mid-breath. Aisha froze instinctively, lowering the child, her body turning protective before her mind could catch up. And then, Michael stepped forward, guilt already flooding his veins. He hadn't meant to interrupt. He hadn't meant to be seen. But the damage was done. Aisha's face drained of color. In her world, moments like this didn't mean tenderness. They meant consequences. I'm sorry, sir, she said quickly, her voice trembling as she set Lily down with careful hands, shielding the child even as fear wrapped tight around her own chest. I was done cleaning. She was crying. I didn't think, please don't fire me. Michael opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Before he could kneel, before he could explain, another presence filled the space. Veronica. Perfect hair, perfect posture, a chill disguised as elegance. She took in the scene in a single glance, the dirt on the floor, the gloves on Aisha's wrists. Lily standing too close to someone who wasn't supposed to matter. Her lips curved into a smile that never reached her eyes. What is this? She asked lightly, like she was commenting on a stain. Aisha bowed her head. Lily didn't move. Instead, the child did something no one expected. She stepped forward and grabbed the fabric of Aisha's dress with both fists, planting herself between the woman and the icy gaze now cutting through the room. It wasn't loud, it wasn't spoken, but it was defiance. Michael felt it like a blow to the chest. Veronica scoffed. She's getting attached, she said coolly. That's dangerous. You let staff forget their place, Michael, and suddenly they start confusing affection with entitlement. Aisha stiffened, swallowing humiliation like she'd done her whole life. Michael saw it then, the difference between the two women standing in front of him. One loved his daughter without asking for anything. The other wanted a child who fit neatly into photos and headlines. And for the first time, Michael understood something terrifying and true. The real threat to Lily had never been her silence. It was the coldness he had almost married into her life. Michael didn't sleep that night. He sat alone in his study. The house dark, except for the blue glow of security monitors lining the wall screens he had installed for protection, for control, for distance. He told himself he was reviewing footage for routine reasons. That was the lie. The truth pressed harder with every passing second. He rewound, not hours, days, and slowly, frame by frame, the house told him the story he had refused to see. There was Veronica. His Veronica, when she thought no one was watching. Her smile gone, her voice sharp and impatient. Lily standing small in front of her shoulders, hunched eyes lowered. Michael watched as Veronica removed a plate from the table untouched and muttered, "If you won't eat, don't waste my time." He watched Lily flinch at a raised hand that never touched her, but didn't need to. Then the screen shifted. Aisha, different light, different air. Aisha crouching to Lily's height, never towering, never rushing. Aisha cutting her own sandwich in half and sliding the bigger piece toward the child when she thought no one would notice. Aisha humming softly while braiding Lily's hair, her voice low and steady, like a promise the world hadn't broken yet. Aisha whispering, "You're safe, baby." "I'm right here." When Lily woke screaming from nightmares Michael never came home to hear. Michael's chest constricted. This woman had been feeding his child with groceries bought from her own paycheck. She had been offering warmth where money had failed. She had been mothering quietly, invisibly, while he signed contracts and boarded planes. The most devastating moment came near the end. Lily sat on the floor, clutching a stuffed rabbit, rocking slightly. Veronica stood over her arms, crossed. Voice. Cold. "Stop that," she said. "You look pathetic." Lily didn't cry. She just went still. The camera caught what Michael never had, the exact moment his daughter learned silence was safer than honesty. Michael ripped the headphones off. He felt sick. The truth was undeniable now, etched into pixels and sound waves. The housekeeper he barely acknowledged had been protecting his daughter, while the woman he planned to marry was quietly breaking her. Money hadn't blinded him. Comfort had. Control had. He thought love meant provision. He thought absence could be justified by results. But the screens told a different story. One of presence, patience, and small daily acts of mercy that healed what wealth never touched. Michael buried his face in his hands. He had been wrong about everything that mattered. And for the first time, the question wasn't how to protect his image. It was how to protect his child before it was too late. Michael waited until morning, not because he needed time to think, but because he needed the night to pass without saying something he could never take back. The sun had barely risen when Veronica entered the kitchen, heels clicking sharply against the tile like a countdown. She poured coffee without looking at him, already irritated, already certain of her place. "We need to talk," she said finally, meeting his eyes. "This situation with the housekeeper has gone far enough." Michael didn't answer right away. He studied her face, the calm confidence, the practiced composure. The woman he once mistook for strength. "She's crossing boundaries," Veronica continued. "Getting emotionally involved. That's not healthy. For Lily. Or for us." She paused, letting the word "us" land like leverage. Either she goes or I do. The ultimatum hung in the air, neat and rehearsed. Michael stood. He walked past her without a word, and down the hall, stopping in front of the security room. He pressed a button. The screens came alive. Veronica's smile flickered. "You installed cameras to protect your home," Michael said quietly. "They did more than that." He pressed play. Her voice filled the room, cold, impatient, unmistakable. Lily's small figure appeared on the screen, shrinking inward as words cut deeper than hands ever could. Veronica stepped back. This is out of context." "No," Michael said, his voice steady in a way it had never been before. "This is clarity." He turned to her, then really looked at her, and felt nothing but resolve. "You don't get to decide what's best for my daughter," he said. "And you don't get to threaten me with your absence like it's a punishment." Veronica's face hardened. "If you choose her," she said, nodding toward the hallway where Aisha worked quietly, unaware, "you'll regret it." Michael shook his head. "I already regret choosing you." The words landed without cruelty, just truth. "It's over," he said. "You're leaving. Today." Veronica laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. "You're throwing away everything for a housekeeper." Michael thought of Lily's laughter in the greenhouse, of small hands clutching fabric in silent defense, of a woman who stayed when it was easier to leave. "I'm choosing my child," he said, for the first time. Later that morning, Lily stood beside Aisha in the hallway, confusion flickering across her face as suitcases rolled past. When Veronica's voice rose in protest one last time, something extraordinary happened. Lily stepped forward. Her voice was small, fragile, but it came. "Don't," she said. The room froze. Michael's breath caught as his daughter wrapped her arms around Aisha's waist and whispered louder now, clearer than ever before. "She's kind." In that moment, there was no doubt left. Michael knelt beside them, eyes burning, heart breaking open. The choice had already been made. He was just finally brave enough to stand in it. The house did not feel quiet after Veronica left. It felt lighter, as if the walls themselves had exhaled. That night, Michael sat on the floor beside Lily's bed instead of retreating to his study. He didn't check his phone. He didn't open his laptop. He just stayed listening to her breathe, steady and warm, beneath the blanket. Aisha stood in the doorway, at first unsure whether she belonged in that moment, until Michael looked up at her and said softly, "Please, don't go." So she stayed. Days passed, and something fragile but real began to grow. Mornings were no longer rushed silences. Lily started speaking in fragments, half-words at first, then sentences that arrived like miracles no one dared interrupt. She laughed more easily, touched more freely. She no longer flinched at raised voices because there were none. Michael changed too. He learned how to make pancakes badly and coffee worse. He learned Lily's favorite color yellow because it reminded her of sunflowers. He learned that healing didn't come from grand gestures, but from showing up again and again when it was inconvenient, when it was messy, when it scared him. One evening, weeks later, they returned to the greenhouse where everything had begun. The air smelled of soil and jasmine. Lily ran ahead, chattering about a butterfly she'd seen earlier that day. Aisha knelt beside a planter, her hands deep in the earth, grounding herself in something alive. Michael watched her for a long moment before speaking. "I don't know what the future is supposed to look like," he said quietly. "I only know what I don't want to lose." Aisha didn't answer right away. She wiped her hands on her jeans and stood her expression calm but guarded. "I stayed for Lily," she said honestly. "Not for promises." "I know," Michael replied. "That's why I'm asking for time. Not ownership, not control, just space to grow." Lily returned, then slipped her small hands into theirs, linking them together without ceremony, as if this arrangement had always existed. "Can we plant one more?" she asked. They did. A small tree. Nothing impressive yet. Just roots and hope beneath the soil. Michael pressed the dirt down with care. Aisha watered it gently, and Lily whispered to it like it could hear. That night, as the house settled into a peace, it had never known Michael understood something profound. Wealth had never protected him from loss. Power had never saved his family. Love had. And love, he was learning, was not loud or perfect or easy. It was patient. It was present. It stayed. For the first time, Michael didn't feel like a man rebuilding ruins. He felt like a father planting a future one quiet, honest day at a time. Time did not rush them, it walked with them. Seasons changed quietly around the house, marked not by calendars, but by small victories. Lily spoke in full sentences now, sometimes too many filling rooms that had once echoed with silence. Her laughter became the soundtrack of the mornings. The nightmares faded. The fear loosened its grip. And when she woke from bad dreams, she no longer cried for someone who was gone. She reached for someone who stayed. Aisha became that constant without trying to replace anyone. She never erased the past. She honored it. On difficult days, she spoke gently about Lily's mother telling stories that kept love alive without reopening wounds. Michael watched those moments with awe, realizing that strength did not dominate, it nurtured. One evening, as autumn leaves gathered along the driveway, Michael came home earlier than usual. Lily ran to him, breathless with excitement. She said yes. Lily whispered, eyes wide, as if sharing a secret meant only for them. Michael found Aisha in the living room, nervous in a way he had never seen before. No uniforms, no barriers, just her real unguarded. "I didn't expect this life," Aisha said softly. "But I choose it. Every day. If you do too." Michael didn't answer with speeches or promises shaped by wealth. He knelt not because he needed to, but because it felt right. "I already chose," he said. "The moment I chose my daughter." The wedding was small. No cameras, no headlines, no polished illusions. Just people who had witnessed the worst and stayed long enough to see the healing. Lily scattered petals with serious concentration, proud of her role, proud of her voice. When she called Aisha Mom openly for the first time, no one corrected her. There was nothing to correct. Later, when the house settled into twilight and guests drifted away, the three of them returned to the garden. The tree they had planted stood taller now, still young, still fragile, but undeniably alive. Michael wrapped one arm around Aisha and the other around Lily. "I spent my life chasing security," he said quietly. "Turns out it was here all along." Aisha rested her head against his shoulder. Lily yawned content. In that moment there was no wealth to protect. No image to maintain, no fear left to outrun. Only a family built not by blood or contracts, but by choice, courage, and love that refused to leave. And that was more than enough. The years did not make them extraordinary. They made them real. The house no longer felt like a place you walked carefully through. It felt lived in. There were fingerprints on the glass doors, crayon marks on the fridge, shoes by the stairs that no one rushed to hide. Lily's voice floated through the rooms freely now, sometimes singing, sometimes arguing, sometimes laughing so hard she forgot to finish her sentences. Aisha watched it all with quiet gratitude. She never claimed credit for the healing. She understood something most people miss. Love doesn't arrive loudly. It stays. It shows up when no one is watching, It kneels on cold floors. It listens. It waits. Michael learned that lesson slowly. Not in boardrooms. Not in victories. But in ordinary evenings, helping with homework, washing dishes side by side, watching his daughter fall asleep without fear. He realized that the life he once chased had almost cost him the only thing that mattered. One night, as rain tapped softly against the windows, Lily looked up from her coloring book and said, "We're safe now, right?" Aisha answered first, "Yes, baby, we are." Michael didn't speak. He just nodded because for the first time in his life, the word safe didn't mean guarded. It meant loved. And maybe that's where this story truly ends. Not with wealth, not with romance, but with presence. Sometimes the people who save us don't wear title, status, or power. They wear patience. They carry kindness. They stay when it's inconvenient. Money can build houses, but love builds homes. If this story touched something inside you, if it reminded you of someone who stayed when they didn't have to, or made you feel safe when the world felt cold, take a moment. Leave a comment and tell us what part moved you the most. Like this story, if you believe love is shown through actions, not words. Subscribe to the channel so more stories like this can reach the hearts that need them. Because maybe, just maybe, you needed to hear this today.